everybody, and welcome to the 5th episode of Season 2 of the Coffin Corner Podcast. I'm your host, ElderPunk, and with me, as always, is my good friend, Richie. Richie, what's up?
What's up, buddy? How'd you like week 1 of the preseason?
I didn't get a chance to watch a lot of it, just a lot of box score watching, but I did watch the Cardinals game, so there's that. And that one is actually not a bad game, so...
It wasn't. It was a pretty exciting finish.
It's an exciting finish. The game itself was competitive. I mean, the fact that the Broncos played their starters for most of the game, or most of the first half, and played the Cardinals defense, that was... for their second and third strings to hold up against their starters was pretty good.
Yeah, Cardinals defense looked a lot better than I expected, for sure.
Sorry. The wife is calling. I don't know if she didn't realize what time it was, but...
Well, that takes priority. If you need to take a phone call, I can hop in and introduce our top 5.
I just text her, so we'll see what happens.
Well, I'll dive in anyway. So this was my idea as I was writing up the notes for this. I figure we can preview, as we get closer to the season. We got a couple things that we can talk about, the teams we think are going to be the worst or the best. But this week, I think we'll just some top 5 things we're most excited to see in 2023. Spoiler alert, I came up with more than 5. So,
which is hilarious to me. Because whenever I do more than 5 on these things, you're like, it's called a top 5.
I didn't say I'm going to name them all. I will pick 5 of the ones I listed.
Okay, gotcha.
But when I got on a roll, I just started writing out everything I was excited to see. But I will pick 5 from this list.
All right. Well, this will be more interesting to see the ones you pick then.
Yes. So I'll go first then. And I'm going to go with the first thing I wrote down because it's definitely the first thing that popped into my mind. And that is the Chargers offense with new offensive coordinator Kellen Moore. He comes over from Dallas. They've been a pretty good offense for the last couple years under him. A lot of deep balls, which is great for Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and the rookie Quentin Johnson. It's good could be good for Justin Herbert. And obviously we've mentioned before, we lived in San Diego both for a while, so the Chargers are kind of like an honorary favorite team. They just the last couple of years with all the talent they have, they just keep falling a little bit short. So I'm just really hoping this is finally the year where they put everything together. They've got a high octane, explosive offense, and Justin Herbert, is a dark horse MVP candidate.
They couldn't do much worse than they did last year, so. We'll see how. I mean, the first half of the season last season, he looked good. Then somehow they just completely fell apart. So maybe.
Well, you figure the playoff loss to the Jaguars last year, and then missing the playoffs by, I think in the last week of the season 2 years ago. So they just had some heartbreaking ends of the season, and they haven't really reached that top offense that they're capable of. When people talk about the most explosive offenses, it's like, Kansas City, Miami, Buffalo, but the Chargers really should be up there with all that talent.
Well, the biggest problem I think is that if Eckler doesn't do what he did last year, they're in a massive hole. That guy led the league. What? MVP candidate? Did he win MVP? Was he close? I don't remember.
Mahomes won MVP. Running backs still win MVP in 2023.
Yeah, well, they really should. But Eckler led the league in touchdowns. He did everything for that team. Passing, running, everything. So unless they can start getting everyone involved, it's really on his back. And if he can't carry it again because he's getting older, it'll be real trouble for him. So,
well, that's why I'm hoping that they finally get the passing game to be as explosive as it should be on paper with all those receivers and the talent Justin Herbert has. So,
yep,
that's what I'm excited to see. We'll see what happens.
So my first one is I could give two flying craps less about the team he plays for, but mine is I really like Tony Pollard, the running back, and the fact that he's now not playing second fiddle to Ezekiel Elliott in Dallas. I'm really excited to see if he's more of a Theo Riddick on the Lions type thing. That's a deep cut for if you're a Lions fans, but let's say for Commanders fans, is it J.D. McKissick?
It was J.D. McKissick.
J.D. McKissick, well, the guy that like caught the ball a lot, got a lot of touchdowns.
Darren Sproles.
Darren Sproles is another one. Yes, exactly. Is he that guy who's not really a number one guy, or can he be what he was as a backup to Elliott and more as the number one guy? We talked about this last season about how, they got Pollard. Ezekiel Elliott's probably on his way out, and look what ended up happening. We were right. So here he is with that chance, and we'll see if he can take advantage of it. I'm excited to see that, though.
Yeah, absolutely. They're betting a lot on Tony Pollard. They haven't really brought in anybody else behind him. And then now that Elliott signed and Dalvin Cook signed, like they could sign Leonard Fournette. They could sign somebody that gets cut after preseason. Or they could just roll out Deuce Vaughn and Malik Davis as the backups and ride Pollard. But it's really going to make or break for the Cowboys, because if they don't have that dominant run game they've had with Zeke, teams can sell out against the pass, and that's really going to hurt them.
Yeah, especially with Dak.
Yeah.
Especially if he gets hurt again. That'll be even worse for them.
Yeah, exactly.
Cooper Rush time.
Quarterback staying healthy. My number 2, I'm gonna pivot down my list a little bit and go with Tua. Can Tua stay healthy and play a full season? Because when he was healthy last year, man, the Dolphins' offense was just firing on all cylinders.
Jalen Waddle and who's their two receivers? Oh, Tyreek
Hill.
Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle were both in the top 3 of receiving leaders for like the first 6 weeks, leading the league.
That game against the Ravens, where it was like 47-45 was the final or something, and the Dolphins led a second half comeback. Like, that was so exciting to see. And then you got like 3 concussions in 2 weeks, and was unfortunately never the same. So now it's, can he stay upright? Can he stay healthy? Because frankly, at this point in his career, if he keeps getting concussions, he may not last much longer in the NFL at all. So I really hope he can stay healthy and be safe and live up to that potential that they had in the first half of the season last year.
I agree. I hope there's no long-term effects of those multiple what do you call them? Concussions that he got, because that was just...
You remember that one he got where his hands like froze and he was on his back and everybody was like freaking out about it? Like, that was terrifying.
Yeah, it was very bad. And that was the second one, I'm pretty sure. So, yeah, I'm with you. I like Tua a lot. I like to watch him play. I like the Dolphins a lot, just in general. So I really hope he can stay healthy.
Yeah, me too.
My first 2 have been, hatred-laden with my with teams I don't really like, but
you're excited to see teams you hate for some reason.
Yeah, well, the fall of the Green Bay Packers, that's another one for me. It's like I'm ready for new things happening in the NFC North, and hopefully that involves the Lions. And that would definitely be new, because they have not won a division title, I believe, since I've been a Lions fan. So,
really,
yeah,
that's crazy.
I'll look it up here in a second when you're on your next point. It up. Okay, there you go. But yeah, it's just going to be interesting to see now that Aaron Rodgers is gone. We went from Favre to Rodgers. Now we're going from Rodgers to Love. No one could have expected what Rodgers would do after Favre left. So to say that Love's not going to be able to do that, I think I would have said the same thing with Aaron Rodgers. So we'll see what happens with Jordan Love. I don't think he's Aaron Rodgers, but he was also a first-round pick. So we'll see what happens with the Packers. It'll be interesting just to see because I feel like Aaron Rodgers did a lot with nothing in his last few seasons there, and now pivoting to Jordan Love doing a lot with nothing. I just don't see that happening. So Aaron Jones probably going to carry that team on his back, and we'll see what happens with the Packers. Are they going to be good? Are they going to be very bad? We will see.
So real quick, Lions' last division championship was the NFC Central before the realignment.
1991?
93.
93.
They also won in 91, but last one was 93. So 30 years. That is quite a long time.
And I started watching the Lions in 1997-98 season. So
okay. I agree about the Packers. I will say there is a small kernel of me as a pessimist who sees Jordan Love, his career is like mimicking Aaron Rodgers' career. The veteran quarterback goes to the Jets, and then, now he's going to take over after sitting behind him for a couple seasons. It worries me, just because I'm, like I said, a pessimist and glass half empty kind of guy, but it would be absolutely ridiculous if they somehow ended up getting another Hall of Fame quarterback and just had
just rolling with Hall of Fame quarterbacks.
40, 50 years of Hall of Fame quarterback play. It would piss me off beyond I think anything ever has. But it again, it is something definitely I'm looking forward to seeing this year too, is how that all pans out for them. My number 3, I'm going to go with the Broncos. And the reason why is because last year, everybody was hyping them to the moon. And they did nothing because they had a coach, in quotation marks, who was an idiot. And now this year, they kind of seem to be more under the radar, even though they have a fantastic coach. So I'm just curious to see how that works out for them. I'm a big Javonte Williams fan. I took him in our Dynasty draft in the second round a couple seasons when he was a rookie, and he hasn't done anything. So I'm hoping he finally can stay healthy and break out. But, there's a couple, there's which receiver is going to be, Russell Wilson's go-to. Can Russell Wilson still play, or is he past that point in his career? I'm just curious to see how things shake out for the Broncos now that they have a legitimate coach and not Nathaniel Hackett, appropriately named.
So Javonte Williams is there. Didn't they sign someone?
Samaje Perine, ex-commander, who I always liked. He was in the Bengals the last couple of years, did well there. Yeah, he's actually a really good backup, or even starter if Javonte gets hurt again.
For some reason, I thought they'd signed an older veteran to back him up, but
they might have.
I'm looking at their roster, and there's not one on there. So
okay.
It'll be interesting. That's interesting that he's definitely the guy as far as depth chart goes for now. So that's at least good for him. If he was being pressured by a good backup, like if they had to sign, who else is left out there? Now that is Elliott and Cook are signed, there's one other guy.
Fournette is really the last
Fournette,
name.
Yeah.
Fournette, yeah.
If Fournette was on the team, I would be worried.
Well, and what's
him.
really interesting too is that the Broncos brought in Jim Bob Cooter to be their offensive coordinator.
Nice.
Ex-Lions and Saints and Chargers offensive coordinator. Everywhere he goes, those running backs get a bunch of catches. So, as far as fantasy goes, it's interesting. Like if Javonte Williams is their lead back, that dude could end up with 90 catches.
Yeah, that'd be
which
crazy.
Would be fantastic for me in our dynasty league.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Okay, so for my next one, I've got when will Jonathan Taylor play? I heard today he was allowed to leave the facility for whatever reason. Second time during
Personal matter.
Yeah. Well, he also had a injury that wasn't real either so far in this training. So I don't know. Well, who knows what's going to happen with Jonathan Taylor and the Colts, but right now it just does not look like anything good. So I'm curious to see what happens with one of, if not the best running back in the NFL, and when is he going to play?
Yeah, that's a really interesting storyline, and Josh Jacobs too kind of falls into that because he hasn't even signed his franchise tag. So, could we have both of them sit out the entire year like Le'Veon Bell did a couple seasons ago?
Ask him how that worked out for him.
Yeah. Will Jonathan Taylor begrudgingly show up and then magically get hurt in week 2 and miss the entire season? I don't know, man, but they're especially Taylor. I think he's the best running back in the NFL right now because I haven't seen Bijan Robinson yet. So Jonathan Taylor's my number 1 guy, but with so many questions around his contract and his willingness to play for that owner, man, it would really be heartbreaking if he missed the entire season after the starts he's had to his career.
Oh, for sure.
My number 4, let's see, which one am I going to pick out? I'm actually going to go with the rookie quarterbacks because we were talking about the Colts. 3 rookies, 2 already announced to start, 1 probably going to be announced to start. I always like, rookie quarterbacks are fun to see how they develop. You don't expect much from them their rookie year, but with next season's draft class, a lot of people consider the best one in a long time. If a team like the Texans suffers and has a bad year, they're still not going to get a chance to draft anybody because the Cardinals have their pick. Whereas like the Panthers, the Bears have their pick. So it's, 2 of the teams starting rookie quarterbacks, if those quarterbacks flame out, they're still not going to get a chance to draft anyone next year. So it's, I don't know, just watching those dominoes fall about quarterbacks all over the league is as a fan of a team that never has good quarterbacks, it's always exciting to see what quarterbacks are doing on other teams.
Yeah, it's I'm looking forward to this. Not even just the starters, but even the backups. So, for example, Hendon Hooker on the Lions, once he finally is not injured, what he can do as a backup. There's plenty of there's a lot of quarterbacks that were drafted you don't even know. For example, could there be a situation where we see a 7th rounder play like a Brock Purdy? I mean, that was a pretty ridiculous situation last year to go through 4 quarterbacks to get to Brock Purdy. But, I mean, Mr. Irrelevant probably being the starter for the 49ers this year, that's just... Rookie quarterbacks are always interesting, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And you're right. Nobody expected Brock Purdy to play a game last year, much less start and lead them into the playoffs. And yeah, like Will Levis in Tennessee, obviously Ryan Tannehill is towards the end of his career. Is Levis the answer, or will they need to draft another quarterback next year? Yeah, it's always an interesting position to see what happens.
Nope, and I still like my guy Dorian Thompson-Robinson. And
yeah,
so
if he was on a team that had a question mark at quarterback, I would think he'd have a chance to play this season. But unless Deshaun Watson gets hurt, I don't think we're going to see DTR play.
No. Oh, and then think about Clayton Tune possibly starting for the Cardinals.
Yes, yeah. Clayton Tune, I'm willing to bet money will start at least 1 game for the Cardinals.
Yeah, well, from everything I saw in that preseason game, Colt McCoy looks old, like he can't even really throw the ball anymore. So we'll see what happens.
He is old.
Yeah. So we'll see.
What you got for number 4?
My number 4 is, do the Chiefs start the season slow again? And I'm especially looking forward to that because they play the Lions in the first game of the season on a Thursday night. So I would love for them to at least start slow for 1 week. They can pick it up as fast as they want the week after that. But, you've seen a lot. There's been the last few years, or at least last year, where you get 4 or 5 games in and you're like, who is this Colts or who is this Chiefs team? They're not the team that we expect under Mahomes and Andy Reid. So it'll be interesting to see with the changes they have at wide receiver starting this year. And, their Clyde Edwards-Helaire being back and all those types of things. What happens with that team to start the season this time? I mean, they are defending Super Bowl champs, so starting slow last year really didn't hurt them. So maybe that's a plan. A little bit of rest there.
Well, and they won the Super Bowl in 2020. And I remember the season after that, they had a really rough start to the season. Actually pulled up the record. They started 3-4 the season after they won the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
So they could have another Super Bowl hangover this season.
Yeah. So we'll see.
So like you said, hopefully it happens week 1 against the Lions.
Against the Lions, that's all I want.
All right. So my last one, I'm gonna pull the homer pick. There's a couple quarterbacks whose stories I'm interested to see. Aaron Rodgers, how he fits in New York, Justin Fields, Geno Smith in Seattle. But obviously, as a Commanders fan, the biggest question in the season is Sam Howell the answer at quarterback for us? And the reason I'm not going to say whether I believe he is or not because I haven't seen enough, but it is a really big question because with new ownership, if he struggles and they have a bad season, they're going to fire Coach Rivera, they're going to fire the GM, and my guess is they're going to want to make a huge trade up to get Caleb Williams or Drake May or somebody like that. So a lot is riding on Howell's shoulders. If he struggles, you're basically seeing an entirely different team, front office, and team next year. If he can at least be average, just a run-of-the-mill Kirk Cousins kind of guy, it just gets the job done, and it's not going to be Mahomes or Herbert, or Burrow, but if he could just be a guy that doesn't turn the ball over and lets rides the running game and lets the defense control it, that's good enough.
Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah, Tannehill, exactly.
You just want him to be Tannehill.
They don't need Burrow. They don't need they don't need a guy that's a top 5 quarterback. They just need someone that can run the offense and not turn the ball over. So, but if he doesn't, I wouldn't be surprised personally if they're struggling and going into next offseason if you see somebody like Terry McLaurin traded, because they really will want to start from the ground up. So, a lot of riding on Howell's shoulders this year.
Yep. Now we can move right into the lowest expectations in the NFL, and that is the Cardinals. And so mine is kind of like what we talked about at the end of last episode, and also just in general with the Cardinals. Will they win a game? Can the Cardinals win a game? Their first preseason game, their defense looks good enough that they will at least be in games against bad teams. So, can the Cardinals win a game? I think they can. I think they'll probably win 2 or 3. We'll see what happens. But the second part to that question is, will Kyler Murray play in 2023? That is where my question. From the sounds of the head coach, it almost sounds like he expects him to be there within the first few weeks, but maybe he's just projecting.
I will say, Zach Ertz coming back after only 9 months and announcing like he's gonna play week 1. That's awesome. I'm very surprised because he hurt himself not too much earlier before Murray did. Like it was only a couple weeks before Murray did. So if I said last week I didn't think Murray plays a game, but if he is that type of, physical specimen that can come back from an injury like that 2 months earlier than most people, then hey, maybe we do see him by October.
My thought is Ertz is old, and if he can do it, there's no reason Kyler Murray, who's shown multiple times throughout the summer that he's working his ass off, there's no reason he can't. So we'll see what happens.
It would be great for the Cardinals if they could get Murray out there. Without him, I think they win 2 or 3 games. It's very hard not to win a single game. Hell, a lot of people are actually picking them to beat the Commanders in week 1, which wouldn't be surprising.
That would be.
But there's they played like the
actually.
Falcons at one point. I think they play the Texans this year. So there are opportunities for them to get a win or 2. If Kyler does come back by October, then it changes their entire season outlook.
Easy.
We will keep an eye on that for sure.
Because they still have Hollywood Brown, they still have Zach Ertz, they still have James Conner. They have a decent offense.
Rondale Moore.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's
There are still
there is the possibility they come out of nowhere and ruin all of our picks because Kyler only misses like 4 games.
Yeah, exactly. We shall
all right.
see.
Well, great. So, yeah, a lot of storylines to watch this season in the NFL. Next week we'll talk about our picks for the best teams and then worst teams as we get closer to week 1.
Give me a second. Why don't you go over some of the news, and I'll be back in a second.
All right. Yeah, there was some interesting news this week. We already discussed some of it. Ezekiel Elliott signed with the Patriots. He had been visiting with them, so that's not a huge surprise. It kind of hurts Ramondre Stevenson in my eyes as far as fantasy goes. That's another guy I've got in our Dynasty League, so Elliott's probably going to take some goal line carries from him. Stevenson will still be, I'm guessing, the lead back, but, it's not going to be a 70% split. I'm sure Elliott's going to get more work than that. Dalvin Cook to the Jets. That one, again, has been rumored for weeks. I don't know what took so long. That one really sucks. I was a fan of Breece Hall last year. I know he got hurt. He was coming back from injury. I figured he'd be fine. And then, they drafted Avon Akonda, who we've mentioned before, was one of our Raz score watchers and looked pretty good so far in their 2 preseason games. But now he's like 4th on the depth chart. But it's good for the Jets. I mean, they've got a loaded offense. Garrett Wilson, Dalvin Cook, Aaron Rodgers. I guess Alan Lazard, Randall Cobb, Corey Davis. They've got players on offense. They definitely got players on defense. So, it helps them, but does not help Breece Hall. For the Colts, they named Anthony Richardson their starter already. We'll get into that more when we recap that game, but I'm kind of surprised by that. Just today, Russell Gage hurt his knee for the Bucs. Unfortunately, will miss the rest of the season. Treylon Burks for the Titans also hurt his knee, but he's only going to miss a couple weeks. And this one was sad. I don't know if you remember Alex Collins, the running back for the Ravens and Seahawks, but he died in a motorcycle accident a couple days ago. So
I'd seen that he passed away, and I saw a few. Did he play? Was it the Broncos? Did he also play on the Broncos?
I remember him on the Seahawks and Ravens. Those are the 2 teams I rember him playing.
Oh, it was the Seahawks because I saw the Seahawks tweet about him.
Yeah.
So
he was like 28 only. I mean, that's pretty sad.
But, for sure.
But, yeah.
Which, I know you already covered this, but Ezekiel Elliott to the Patriots is huge. I think it's huge because I don't see Ramondre Stevenson holding the starting job over him the entire season.
Yeah, I mean, Belichick has said he likes Ramondre Stevenson, but, I mean, Belichick always uses multiple running backs, so they're definitely both going to get usage. If Zeke stays healthy and looks like he did in Dallas, then, yeah, I mean, he could end up, by the end of the season, getting more work, which really sucks, because I like Ramondre Stevenson. It's one of my dynasty running backs. I was really excited for him to break out, and now, at best, it'll be like a 50-50 split.
See, what you had in Dallas, you now have on the Patriots, and you know that Belichick does that. So,
yeah.
How many years was there not like the one guy you drafted for the Patriots as your running back in fantasy?
It's been a long time since I can't even remember the running back's name that was like their running back in like the early 2000s. That was like a.
I know you're talking about, but I can't
solid starter. And ever since then, it's just been like random James Whiteses and Ben Jarvis, Green Ellises thrown around.
Yes, it's always you're like, who is this guy this year? So
yeah.
I feel like if you are an Elliott owner in a dynasty league, you're happy with this pickup because I don't see a lot of other places where he would be utilized the way he's probably going to be there. For example, Dalvin Cook going to the Jets. I don't think that he's taken anything away from Breece Hall. There should be no reason.
Really?
The only reason is because Breece Hall's coming back from an injury, but the second he's back from that injury 100%, there's no reason to have Dalvin Cook above Breece Hall. Breece Hall's better than Ramondre Stevenson.
Oh, I agree. Breece Hall's awesome. I feel like Dalvin Cook's going to get more work because Aaron Rodgers likes him more.
Yeah, I guess it just boils down to how dumb the Jets are. Because if you're gonna do what the Packers did and just give in to every single one of his desires, it didn't work. It never worked, and it won't work. So if you're going to be like, oh well, let's stunt Breece Hall's growth just because he likes Dalvin Cook.
Whoa.
Dalvin Cook. Then you're just screwing yourself.
This is a family podcast, my friend.
No. I have branded it for adults, so we're good here.
Adults only, Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, look out for the pile drive of Dalvin Cook.
That should be the tagline for this episode. Aaron Rodgers likes cock.
Yes.
Cock.
Exactly.
But yeah, and see the thing is, I do think the Jets are stupid. They've already went out and got Alan Lazard and Randall Cobb to placate Aaron Rodgers' ego. They signed Dalvin Cook to placate his ego. And since Aaron Rodgers is basically going to be calling his own plays because Nathaniel Hackett, his buddy, is the offensive coordinator, I see them using Dalvin Cook for no fucking reason while Breece Hall sits there on the bench, even though he's a fantastic running back. And yeah, that one hurts. Because, like, watching Breece Hall last year, him and Dameon Pierce, it was like, oh, man, we got two good young running backs. And now one of them
Brian Robinson. There were a bunch last year.
Yeah, but Brian Robinson he wasn't Breece Hall or Dameon Pierce. Or Kenneth Walker, for that matter. Like, there were some really good young running backs last year. And then the Seahawks go out and draft Zach Charbonnet to team with Kenneth Walker. It's like, just leave these guys. Let them be the bell cows. At least Dameon Pierce is on his own.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we've seen how well that always works. That works for the Titans.
Oh, man. All right, so let's dive in to the preseason Week 1 review. We're going to start with the Texans and Patriots because it was the first game. And I touched on this when I mentioned Anthony Richardson. Oh, no, that's not the Texans. Never mind. But C.J. Stroud also struggled, just like Anthony Richardson did. He was 2 of 4 for 13 yards and a pick, whereas Davis Mills looked not bad against backups, of course, but it looked terrible. So I think the question becomes: do the Texans start Davis Mills for a couple of weeks, or do they just roll with Stroud?
You've seen Davis Mills. You have to roll with Stroud, even though he sucks. Or he sucked in that first preseason game. You got to roll with him. I mean,
yeah, that pick through was just a bad decision.
You cannot go back to Davis Mills. I'm sorry.
I agree.
And if you do, this is the only time to start at the beginning or the end if you're not going to keep C.J. Stroud. But you cannot go to Davis Mills in the middle. So now would be the only time they could. But I don't think they should.
Oh, kind of like what the Dolphins did to Tua was it his rookie year when they did that, where it's like they benched him midway through the season and then brought him back out as the starter?
Yes. That's just such a dumb idea.
I hate the idea of rookie quarterbacks sitting, frankly, unless you have, like, the Packers had Aaron Rodgers. The Chiefs, when they sat Mahomes, had Alex Smith. Unless you have a guy like that, why would you sit your first-round rookie quarterback behind a below-average quarterback? I don't think they should sit him. It's like last year with the Steelers. Why did they sit Kenny Pickett behind Trubisky? Pickett was the future. Stroud is the future of the Texans, or at least they need to find out if he is.
Well, I mean, if you had listened to this podcast, it's because you thought that Trubisky was going to be awesome. But as I said, he was garbage. And it came to
what I said was I would have liked Trubisky on the Commanders.
We can go back. We can go back. I kept telling you that Trubisky was garbage, and you said he's not bad. And I said I would rather. I listed several other quarterbacks that came out at the same time as him, and you said that most of them weren't even as good as him.
No, I absolutely did not say that because he came out with Mahomes and Watson, and I never would have said.
I'm talking about quarterbacks the same. I'm talking about quarterbacks that had the similar situations to him within a year of when he was drafted. Listen.
Okay, well, I'll have to listen to the archives because all I know is that I felt like Trubisky deserved more opportunity, and I would have rather seen him on the Commanders than Carson Wentz last year. I don't know if it would have worked out any differently, but it wouldn't have been worse.
Yeah. Well, for sure.
But the last thing, Tank Dell, he was targeted a lot in that game. He was the most targeted receiver. Went 5 for 65 yards and a touchdown. So, I mean, we were talking about the Texans receivers as a position battle to watch. I think that was one of yours last week. So, at least in the first game, he was the one getting the most targets.
That he was. And people like Nico Collins only got 1. Mechie with 1. So Tank got a lot of work.
Definitely something to watch in the other 2 preseason games to see how much work he gets. But
as well that every running back did better than Devin Singletary for the Houstons in the rushing game.
Yeah, I don't see Singletary as a threat to Dameon Pierce. I see him as depth.
Yeah, exactly.
Not somebody they're going to rotate in. Vikings at Seahawks. Really, the only thing that I wanted to point out in this one was Drew Lock's performance. Not too bad for him. 17 of 24, 191 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick that was off a tipped pass. I'm curious to see this because when the Seahawks traded Russell Wilson, they were adamant about getting Drew Lock in return. And then he didn't win the job last year. Geno Smith did. Had a great season. Got an extension. So now Drew Lock's kind of just sitting there in limbo. Don't really know what's going to happen with him. I don't feel like he's not going to get another shot in the league. I feel like he'll at least get one more shot, whether it's in Seattle or somewhere else.
Yeah, we'll see. On the opposite side, quarterback-wise, it's interesting to see what the backups to Kirk Cousins are because although Nick Mullins did well in that game, who are these people? Jaron Hall, Nick Mullins? Have they drafted a quarterback in the last 4 years? Yeah, they're looking like the Lions before they got Hooker. So, yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. I remember Nick Mullins because he was in San Francisco. He was like Brock Purdy before Brock Purdy. Jaron Hall I'm not familiar with. I just I don't know. But that's the other one too is Holton Ahlers, the Viking quarterback that I mentioned pre-draft who signed with Seattle.
Against the Vikings, 4 for 4.
4 for 4, 43 and a touchdown. I mean, that's not bad for an undrafted free agent. So I just want to see him make a roster. I mean, if you're a descendant of an actual like
Ragnar
Viking
Lothbrok,
yeah,
come on,
you deserve to be on a roster somewhere. Not to mention, I'm pretty sure the guy's massive too in his size. No, I guess not. He's 6'3", 227. I thought he was taller, but still.
Last thing I want to mention from that game, N'Keal Harry, 2 targets, 2 catches, 24 yards. So hopefully he's landing on his feet after the debacle that was his Patriots time.
And Bears. He played like
he was on the Bears
or something.
Okay.
Yeah, last season. I think he played for the Bears for like a game or 2 or something. Holton Ahlers also had 26 yards rushing on 6 carries. Damn.
Nice.
Impressive. But, yeah, love N'Keal Harry. I mean, getting drafted to the Patriots when the Cardinals wanted to draft him, he would have been so much better if he came to Arizona, but oh well. Next up, Giants-Lions. I figure you can talk more about this game, but I just want to point out that thank God they drafted Hendon Hooker because Nate Sudfeld is garbage.
Nate Sudfeld is garbage, and then the other part to that is I'm so glad that they have they signed Teddy Bridgewater.
Yes, that too.
So
yeah,
they'll be fine because it'll be Goff with Bridgewater as the backup, and then Hendon Hooker when he's back. So Nate Sudfeld, terrible, played almost this entire game. Adrian Martinez was wasn't he in the AAF? So
it says he's an undrafted rookie.
Oh, I'm thinking of there was another guy. I thought this was him. Well, anyways, either one of these guys are not going to be on the roster. So they're just playing quarterback for the preseason to probably Adrian Martinez probably playing for the practice squad. Nate Sudfeld probably not playing for anything.
Playing for another team, basically.
Yes, exactly. And other things I wanted to say about this game is sacks. It was crazy. They had, between the Okwara brothers, 3 sacks for Julian Okwara and 1 for Romeo. And that was 4 of the 5 sacks the team got. So the only other one was Benito Jones. And that's just insane to me that the 2 brothers that were high draft picks and have not lived up to expectations on the line, showing why they should stay on the team and be the backups to our current amazing line. Giving Hutchinson a spell, any of our guys that were there last year, with these 2, if they can play like this, it will be huge. So I was glad to see them actually play well. As far as
that Lions defense, man, has a lot of talent on it. Could be very dangerous.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Brian Branch, I don't know if you saw the plays you did saw because you sent me the tweet, but I talked about it last week that Brian Branch was pushing Tracy Walker for that starting safety spot, which is crazy because Tracy Walker just got a big contract a year or 2 ago. So, that might be something to watch, whether that we keep Tracy Walker and start Brian Branch. But Brian Branch is a rookie. The fact that he fell to them where he did in the second round was just a gift for the Lions.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely.
Amani Oruwariye playing against his former team. I don't know if you saw that, but okay. Have fun in New York.
Excuse me.
I don't. As far as the Giants go, there wasn't a lot to show there. As far as their receivers go, the most targeted receiver was Cole Beasley, and to me that's a problem because Cole Beasley wasn't on a team for like a year and a half before he went to the Bills last year. So, I mean, if your starting guy is the guy that no one wanted for a year and a half, your main guy, that's going to be a problem. So I don't know.
I did see that the receiver Bryce Ford Wheaton that I liked, he was targeted 3 times but didn't have a catch.
Yeah,
concerning. Don't like to see that.
Remember Khalil Pimpleton from Hard Knocks last year on the Lions?
Yes,
he's a Giant. He got signed to the practice squad of the Giants last year, still on the Giants, and he was targeted twice. Got 2 catches for 32 yards in the preseason.
They literally just have like a room full of receivers, but no one stands out.
Yeah, it's pretty sad.
Just a whole bunch of names you'll know, but none of them are that impressive. But,
yeah, like Jamison Crowder at one point in his career was really, really good.
Oh yeah, when he was on the Redskins, man, he was fantastic as our PPR like slot receiver. I wish they would have kept him, but at the time they had more pressing needs than a slot receiver.
And then even on the Jets, that's where I remember him from. On the Jets, he was at a slot guy, was really good, but
yeah,
they're just names at this point.
All right, so Commanders Browns. I'll be brief in this one, mainly because talking about backups.
All these.
It's like most of them aren't even going to make the roster. But Sam Howell, he played, I believe, 3 snaps. The offensive line was terrible, especially on the first 2 drives. They gave up a holding in the end zone for a safety, which was very upsetting. But he finished 9 for 12, 77 yards and a touchdown. That final drive did some really good things. Scrambled on 3rd down and found Terry McLaurin for a 1st down, looking downfield. The touchdown throw to Jahan Dotson was a little high, but it was placed where only Dotson could get it, which is good instead of it potentially being a turnover. Enough that I comfortable with him being the starter over Jacoby Brissett. Jacoby Brissett also looked pretty good. Led a touchdown drive in the second quarter. So I mean, we've got a 5th rounder that hopefully we can see him develop, and if not, we at least have a solid veteran backup in Brissett. Defense looked good. They stuffed the Browns at the goal line in their first drive, let them drive all the way down, and then stuffed them on 4th and goal, which is classic Commanders. We let them walk all over us, but somehow keep them from scoring. Mm-hmm. And then on the Brown side, Deshaun Watson, looked like Deshaun Watson again, which is nice, running around a bit. But the big thing, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, 9 of 10, 102 yards and a touchdown. Great stat line. That dude's definitely making the roster. I don't see how they...
I would love to see him climb up that depth chart to be the backup. I mean,
I forget their backup is Joshua Dobbs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Dobbs, Mond, and DTR. That's why I'm saying, like,
yeah.
That, to me, I would think, from an outsider looking in, not a Cleveland fan or anything, not knowing, I would think that backup job would be up for grabs because none of those names are massive, big names.
No.
So,
no.
And DTR in 2 preseason games so far has looked like the best one. So
Kellen Mond probably won't even make the team, honestly. Dobbs at least has experience, so they'll probably keep him around. But you got to keep DTR over Kellen Mond. And I feel like they will. They can't put the guy in a practice squad because somebody's going to sign him.
Someone would take him for sure.
Yeah. So, all right. Next up, so Broncos Cardinals. We talked about the Cardinals game a little bit. Defense definitely played better than we expected. Pressured Russell Wilson a lot. The starters did. Zaven Collins moving to outside linebacker. I mean, he looked pretty good blitzing. And then of course they managed to win the game at the end behind your favorite David Blau leading that game-winning drive.
This is where me being a box score watcher doesn't give you the full picture because the second Clayton Tune was pulled in the middle of a drive for David Blau, the wind was sucked out of that team on offense. They had to lead a game-winning drive because all their momentum the second Clayton Tune came out of the game was gone. And they played so bad for an entire quarter's worth of time before Blau managed to pull this comeback out of his magical hat. So, yeah, his stats don't look terrible, but David Blau just did not command the same type of energy or from his team that Clayton Tune did. I don't know.
No, absolutely. And that's what I think is funny. Like you mentioned Colt McCoy earlier. He looked terrible. Like you look at his stat, 4 for 4, 17 yards. It's like, 4 for 4. But when you're averaging 4 yards a pass, that's not that impressive. I was about to say,
all his passes were under 20 yards.
Yeah. All of his passes combined for under 20 yards. Like he was just kind of handing it off basically. But yeah, Clayton Tune, I thought he didn't look too bad. And that's why I definitely think he'll start a game. I mean, unless Kyler Murray comes back early, he'll definitely start a game at some point because Colt's gonna not look that great. I mean, they played the Cowboys week 2 and the Giants week 3, I think. So I mean, they've got a rough start to the schedule. I can definitely figure Clayton Tune starting a game in early October if Murray's still out.
And I'll say this much: is the second that Jerry Jeudy and Sutton were out of the game, I couldn't tell who on that team was gonna make any plays. Like they every drive was with different players the entire time. Like, and they didn't have a lot of drives. They did once Blau came in, it affected the defense too because that's when they started scoring. I don't know, but that team didn't look like it had much identity outside of its starters, and it was more fun to watch the Cardinals' defense against their offense because the defense was making them look so bad. So
yeah, the defense. I was very impressed by the defense. I really expected our Cardinals defense to be terrible this season after letting Zach Allen walk and losing J.J. Watt. But I mean, it is the Eagles' defensive coordinator is their new head coach. So I mean, he might be scheming better, and they sure blitzed a lot. So that's at least exciting to watch. But yeah, I will say I had zero hope for the Cardinals to be entertaining this year. At the very least, after that game, the defense might be fun to watch at least, even if the offense can't do anything.
I think the most interesting and fun part to watch of this season is going to be the coaching, honestly, because the coaching on that team, everybody on that team At least the coordinators, they're all low 30s in age.
Super young.
It's like the youngest coaching crew ever.
Yeah. Is it the offensive coordinator that's literally 30 years old? Or the
and then the defensive... No, it's the defense coordinator's 30. And I think the offense coordinator is like 32, 33.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So these are all people, when I'm actually thinking about it, are like 7 and 10 years younger than I am, leading football teams. That's
best not to think about it. Make you feel too old.
I look at a mirror. All this gray always makes me feel old. So
that really hit me when Sean McVay first broke out, and I'm like, that dude is younger than me, and he has a Super Bowl ring as a coach. Like that, yeah. All right, Packers Bengals. Bengals didn't play any starters, but for the Packers, Jordan Love, 7 of 10, 70 yards and a touchdown. Of course, Packers fans went nuts and started anointing him as the next great quarterback.
He led a singular drive against backups.
Yeah, and his other couple drives, he I think overthrew a receiver. If you watch the game, he wasn't that impressive. But if you look at his stats and you think oh man, 7 of 10, 70 yards and a touchdown. But yeah, he had some bad throws and didn't really look that great. So,
but there's Dobbs. I love seeing Dobbs still doing well.
Romeo
Dobbs, 221 and a touchdown. I'm sure he was.
A lot of people think Christian Watson's going to be their number one. I think Romeo Dobbs is going to be their number one receiver.
I think they might name Christian Watson their number one receiver just because he was drafted higher. But Dobbs, all Dobbs did last year,
produce as the number one receiver.
Yeah, all Dobbs did last year. That's the guy on that team for me.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not touching Christian Watson.
Yeah.
Falcons, Dolphins. Really, in this one, just want to look at the Dolphins running back situation because that's another position battle. We talked about Jeff Wilson, Raheem Mostert did not play, of course. Devon Aiken, the rookie, had 10 carries for 25 yards. But the forgotten man, Myles Gaskin, 7 for 57. Pretty good for him.
The forgotten man is right, which is hilarious because he's been there the longest, and he's always been a name that I liked.
Yeah.
Like not Chase Edmonds. Who's the guy that came from the Dolphins to the Cardinals?
Yeah.
He was always one I really liked, and then Gaskin was his backup, and I'm like, if that guy leaves, Gaskin's the starter now, and Gaskin will prosper. Well, that never happened. Gaskin's never been. Yes, Drake. When there was Drake number 1, Gaskin 2, I'm like, they have the two-headed running back monster in Miami. Now Drake's somewhere. He was what?
He's in the league.
Yeah, I don't know where he went last year, but no one talks about him anymore. Gaskin was listed like the 3rd or 4th halfback for the Miami, so I don't know. It's good to see him doing well.
Oh, Kenyon Drake signed with the Colts, actually, just on the 5th of August.
Oh, hey, look at that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I like Gaskin, but I don't know, maybe the coaches just don't like him because it seems like every year they keep signing new running backs, and then he ends up playing anyways and doing well.
Yep. Exactly. Right. He's like the steady hand, like Mike Gesicki always was. We don't know which wide receivers are going to do well, but Mike Gesicki's going to catch his balls every week.
Yeah, the tight end will. Steelers, Bucks, Kenny Pickett had a great day. 6 of 7, 70 yards and a touchdown, and a beautiful touchdown to George Pickens. Looked really good for the second-year quarterback, and George Pickens, who a lot of people have pegged as a breakout wide receiver this year.
What about Baker Mayfield? 8 of 9, 63, touchdown. Looking pretty good.
Yeah, Baker looks fantastic. 8 of 9, 63 yards and a touchdown. Kyle Trask, not too bad. 6 of 10, 99 yards and a pick. But they've already announced that Kyle Trask will start week 2 in the preseason, so he'll get a play with all the ones. Also against the first team defense. So interesting to see how he does in a starting situation. But yeah, Baker went out there and did exactly what they want him to do to be named as the starter. So
also good to see our former Hot Shots quarterback John Walford doing well. 10-17, 111 and a touchdown. We'll always have a soft spot
for the AAF. Yeah,
always have a hot spot in my heart.
A hot
for
spot
John
for
Walford.
the soft spot.
Yeah. So.
Yes, he was fantastic for the Hot Shots. But yeah, definitely we'll see how Trask does next week, but I'm still betting Mayfield ends up as a starter in Tampa Bay. Chargers, Rams, I mean, not a lot of starters played, but I want to shout out Stetson Bennett, the Georgia quarterback. 17 of 29, 191 yards and a touchdown. Not too bad for, I believe he was a fourth-round pick, and for a team like the Rams who need a quarterback of the future, always a chance for him to play well enough to lock that up.
Was that Stetson Bennett? Yeah, for
Stetson
sure.
Bennett.
It's for a guy that was in college for 10 years to come out of college and do well.
Won 2 national championships, I think, too. Like, yeah. Great resume. Exactly. Eagles, Ravens, Pro Bowler Tyler Huntley, his official name, Pro Bowler Tyler Huntley, 8 of 11 for 88 yards and a touchdown. I mean, he is a very solid backup. I mean, he played well for Lamar last season. Probably could start for a couple teams in the league, like the Commanders. But, not a lot of questions there. But the Eagles running back situation, again, another position battle. Rashad Penny, actually not too bad, 9 for 34. DeAndre Swift only had 2 carries for 24 yards, but I don't know if you saw the play. He like ran someone over at the end of one of those runs. So,
well, here's the other thing about that. 2 for 24. 24 yards doesn't seem like a lot, but having 2 carries for 24 yards with one of them, one was 22 yards. I was going to say, that averages out over 10 yards, but one of them was a 22-yard run.
It literally averages out at 12 yards.
I know, but my point is they weren't both 10-yard runs. One was a 2 one was
exactly. But, they only gave him a sneeze.
But he could have been Trey Sermon with 9 rushes for 21 yards, so...
Right. Exactly. I mean, it's and that run, like, that's the big thing with like preseason is the box scores always look ridiculous, but when you watch the players on the field, like that run by Swift where he lowers his shoulder, like that's a good looking run. I still think they're going to use a mix of running backs like they do every year. But Swift, if given the rock and they let him be a guy that gets more work, I think he can handle it.
Penny's a big guy, right?
Nope,
he's not. Big. 5'11", 220.
Yeah, I mean, 220 is pretty good size.
I was just thinking if he was going to be the like power guy.
No, I don't think he's. But he could be a solid. He's just not Derrick Henry.
No.
But yeah, he's not Deuce Vaughn.
But I also don't know what Jamal Williams' size was, because with DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams on the Lions, Jamal was always the put your head down and run straight guy, while Swift was the swing out, catch passes.
Jamal Williams 6 foot 224. So I mean he's an inch taller, and what did you say Swift was 210 or something?
Swift's 5'8" or 5'9", 215.
You said he was 5'11" just now.
No, I was talking about Rashad Penny.
Oh, okay. Yeah, big difference then. 5'9", that is actually a smaller running back, but yeah, and that's Rashad Penny could be the goal line guy, and Swift could be the between the 20s guy, but I mean the Eagles do that every year anyways, is they're always rotating running backs in and out.
Right.
Jags, Cowboys. The only thing that I really paid attention to was Tank Bigsby, because there's all the talk about him stealing a lot of work from Travis Etienne. 9 carries for 52 yards. Pretty good.
That is, definitely good.
I mean, Calvin Ridley played for the first time in over a year. Didn't do much, but he was there, so that's nice to see.
He caught both his passes.
For how many yards?
21.
Yeah. I mean, that's not bad, but 2 catches for 21 yards is not. I'm not gonna get excited over it. It's just nice to see him on the field again after a stupid suspension.
Well, yeah, but they literally, I don't remember what they traded to get him, but that's a huge,
like almost nothing.
I was gonna say that's a huge. There's a huge ceiling for what they got for a troubled receiver. So.
Let's see what they gave up. They gave it up a 5th rounder and a 2nd rounder next year. Okay, so I mean that's that's actually pretty high. Yeah, but still, could with him and Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram, and they could end up having a ridiculous offense.
Yeah, for sure.
Jets, Panthers, Israel Anaconda, 12 carries for 56 yards. Jonathan Mingo, one of my receivers that I was looking at pre-draft, 0 targets. That's sad.
Yeah.
And then I watched some of this game, and Bryce Young, I mean, his stat line doesn't look too bad, but man, he had no time to throw the ball. He was just getting rushed constantly. And I mean, again, it could be because it's preseason week 1 and all that, but that's really going to hurt a rookie quarterback if he doesn't have any protection. You go back to like David Carr for the Texans getting destroyed his rookie year and never being the same. So yeah, definitely something I want to see because. Anyways, that's all I really. Some of these games there wasn't much to talk about. It's preseason week 1.
Yeah, the big thing in Carolina was the wide receiver battle. Who was going to be the number 1? Adam Thielen, DJ Chark, both 1 catch, 8 and 5 yards. But then Laviska Shenault didn't have a catch, and we're looking. Who's the guy I was looking at on the Carolina that I thought was going to be? I don't even see his name on this list, so maybe he didn't play.
I can't.
I'm looking it up. Hold on.
Okay. Because the only one that I was paying attention to was Jonathan Mingo.
Oh, yeah, it was Mingo.
Yeah, he had 0 targets. He did nothing.
Yeah.
He was on the field. I double-checked. I looked at the box score, didn't see his name. I checked. He was on the field. Not even targeted
Terrace
once.
Marshall. I don't see his name on there either. So
I don't know if he was... I'm assuming he also was just not targeted at any point.
No.
But,
so, no, I don't really think there's anything to glean from that wide receiver battle there. 2 guys had 1 catch each, and others had none. So, who knows?
Yeah, it's unfortunate because I like Jonathan Mingo, and I'd like to see him kind of stand out as the number 1 receiver, but it's going to take some time. If you look at Tank Dell, what he did in his first preseason game versus Jonathan Mingo, it's a big difference. Titans, Bears, Justin Fields, 3 of 3 for 129 yards and 2 touchdowns. Looks fantastic on paper. They were very exciting plays, but they were both screens. So that credit goes to DJ Moore, excuse me, and Khalil Herbert. I mean, I wasn't impressed by Justin Fields throwing the ball sideways. They were exciting plays. They were big plays. I was impressed by, DJ Moore looked fantastic on that catch and run. But, I mean, I didn't see anything out of Justin Fields that blew me away.
Yep. Definitely one of those things where I'm looking at like 3 out of 3 for 129 yards. That's huge. And then you look and you see box score should really say have yards after catch on them.
Yeah.
For yards.
That was the other one too. Khalil Herbert broke tackles and ran people over as he's trying to solidify himself as the Bears starting running back. That was cool.
Or at least,
like I told my dad, because we were watching the game together, I told him, I was like, I want to see Justin Fields lead a drive. I need to see him put a drive together. Like, big plays are fantastic, but you're not going to score one play for 85 yards and a touchdown every time you touch the ball.
No, exactly. So.
The other thing, the Bears defense let Malik Willis drive on them, which was hilarious because Malik Willis was one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL last season. So definitely still some question marks for the Bears defense. As far as the Titans,
well, I mean, the Bears defense, I've been looking at this every game box score that I've looked at since we've been going over this. The Bears defense had the most sacks.
They did?
Of preseason week 1 that I've seen so far. They have 8. The Lions had 5. That was the second highest I remember seeing.
They had a lot of sacks once third and second stringers were playing.
Which, I understand that, but my point is every team is playing third and second stringers. So of those third and second stringers, the Bears are looking the best as far as sacks go.
Yeah, which, I mean, good on them. But when your starters let Malik Willis drive down the field, that's what I pay attention to.
Well, you could have given up 2 screens for touchdowns in the first 2 drives. So
yeah, that's bad. Tajay Spears, he was another player to pay attention to, at least for me, just because with Derrick Henry getting older, he might start getting spelled a bit more. He had 6 carries for 32 yards, respectable. But nothing, nothing else really that impressive. A lot of teams didn't play their starters at all. So. Colts Bills. Obviously the big thing here, which was fantastic, was Damar Hamlin returning to the field for the first time. That was pretty cool. I don't know if you got to catch that at all.
I didn't see it, but I knew that he had.
Yeah, just a fantastic moment to see him back out there. This is the thing that just confuses the hell out of me. Gardner Minshew. Well, first we'll start with Anthony Richardson because he started the game. He went 7 of 12 for 67 yards and a pick. 7 of 12 is not bad. Then Gardner Minshew comes in and goes 6 of 6 for 72 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Then, a couple days later, the Colts announce Anthony Richardson is their starter. Which, granted, 4th overall pick, was going to start at some point. I know we just talked about, you don't sit a quarterback unless they have a good quarterback in front of them. The difference is Anthony Richardson... Everybody before the draft said he was a project. Gardner Minshew has experience, has had success, goes out there and shows success, but the Colts still say, we're going to start the inexperienced project at quarterback and see how that works out for us.
This was probably the best situation Gardner Minshew could find himself in so far in his career as a guy. I mean, I know he had some good chances there for a little bit with the Jaguars, but... And then it gets beat out by Anthony Richardson. The guy can't buy a break.
Yeah, it's just bewildering. I mean, I understand that Richardson's the future at quarterback there. I get that, but why do it now? Why not wait until after week 2 and Anthony Richardson maybe plays better and you can be like, oh, there we go, he locked up the job. Why do it after a game where he struggles and the backup plays well and then you come out and be like, doesn't matter, he's our starter anyways?
Yeah, that's what the part that gets me, right? Because, everyone thinks that playing a rookie to get experience is the best thing for a rookie, except the mind game is a huge thing even in quarterbacks, where if he struggles for an entire year, did he actually advance or did he get set back? Because now he feels either A, contempt for his team, thinking they're the problem, or doubt in himself that he's the problem and he's not getting better. There's just so many things when you start a young quarterback that's considered a project quarterback. And just let him go out there. If we lose, we lose, But yes, he gains the experience, but what does that do to the mind? So
right. Well, and if Anthony Richardson was a quarterback with a lot of college experience or a lot of college success, then I can understand it. But I mean, this is a guy that he wowed everybody at the combine, had a couple of highlight plays in his senior season. But in his career in college, he started 13 games. Threw 24 touchdowns to 15 interceptions. I mean, he's not that he hasn't shown much on the field to be worthy of anointing him the week 1 starter, in my opinion. Whereas all he did was the combine's like, holy crap, his measurables are amazing. His measurables are amazing. It's like, yeah. But I don't know. I just think if Minshew had struggled or Richardson had played better, I get it. But it's just a weird timing to be like, oh, yeah, he's the starter, even though, he didn't look that great and Minshew went out there and looked good. And like you said, the timing. Wait until the week before the season. Like, why do you need to announce it now? I don't know. It's baffling.
Exactly. I don't get it.
All right. Chiefs Saints. Derek Carr's first game for the Saints. Went 6 of 8 for 70 yards and a touchdown. Fantastic. Derek Carr, I feel like he got a bad rap for the Raiders, especially when Josh McDaniels came up and just didn't like him. And it never seemed like...
I don't even think he had a bad rap. I think he had a good rap, and they just pushed him out.
That's what I mean.
Everyone on the team loved him and could not understand the second he got benched It's like, what are you doing? Devontae Adams went to the team to play with him.
Yeah.
Like
but the coaches, Gruden, that's the guy I'm thinking. Gruden and then McDaniels both just seem to hate him. And I don't get it.
Gruden should love him because he's the only reason he kept his job as long as he did.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm rooting for Derek Carr in New Orleans.
I am too. I've always liked Derek Carr, and I like the fact that one of the Carr brothers actually was allowed to be put in a position where he could have some success.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely agree. Last game, 49ers at Raiders. I'll start by talking about Aiden O'Connell because he was, for some reason, the big story on social media after this game. 15 of 18 for 141 yards and a touchdown. I guess he was a sleeper in the draft. He's not somebody I remember at all. But a lot of people saw how he looked for the Raiders and thought, oh, man, maybe he's a draft gem or a draft steal. Oh, good for them. Something to at least watch the next 2 weeks in the preseason.
If he is, that'll be good. Because they just traded in an old quarterback in Derek Carr for an old quarterback in Jimmy Garoppolo, who a year ago nobody wanted. They could not even trade him.
Banged up the last couple of years, so probably will miss some time at some point.
If Aiden O'Connell is good, that'll be very good for the Raiders, especially if Jimmy G is A, hurt, or just B, not as good as he once was.
Agreed. And then the last thing for the 49ers quarterback situation, always a question mark. Sam Darnold, 5 of 8 for 84 yards. And then Trey Lance, and this is exactly looking at the box score versus watching the plays. He went 10 of 15 for 112 yards and a touchdown, which looks good. But he was sacked 4 times because he didn't get rid of the ball. His touchdown was a lucky bounce that should have been a pick. And then he had another interception that was right into a guy's hands that got dropped. So could have looked a lot different on paper. And then I heard something. There was a report yesterday that basically the 49ers are just giving up on Trey Lance already. They're just
I heard that as
done.
well. They're like, we just really want Sam Darnold to be our backup. And I'm like, based on what? What has he done to warrant that? It makes no freaking sense to me, dude.
To go from trading up to get him to they're just like, we're just going to make
letting him play 14 plays last season, and then you're like, nope, we don't want him. Yeah. That makes no freaking sense. I understand being called a bust if you play and are a bust. He hasn't played. Yeah. He hasn't even had a chance.
Hasn't had a
This is a guy you trade for. This is a guy you give up a 6th round pick to take from this team.
Absolutely.
And if he tears it up, you make them pay for it because he's never played. There's nothing to say he's not good. He's injury prone, sure. I can
think is that he is so bad in practice that Kyle Shanahan and they're just like, he's so bad in practice they're just done with him. That's the only thing I can possibly think. Because I haven't seen enough of him to make a judgment. And the only thing they've seen him do is practice. So that's my only thought. I have no idea. And again, I also don't know if it's true.
Yeah, I doubt he practiced a lot after his injury, since the injury. And
probably just
before then, he practiced well enough to be the starter. So, I don't know. But
I have no idea.
Who knows? That's speculation, trying to guess what the situation is. But I don't understand it. So we'll see what happens.
I don't think they're going to do something crazy like trade him or cut him this year, but
he'll be the 3rd string, and then everyone will wonder why this guy just... what happened here?
Crazy. But at the very least, I mean, that has to go down as probably the worst trade in draft history at this point. Unless Trey Lance can suddenly bounce back for the 49ers. If he does it somewhere else, it's still a bad trade for the 49ers.
Yeah, it's overall, it's just bad in general. Yeah. So,
all right, well, that was week 1. Let's dive on into our picks for the 2023 standings. We kind of did this with the AFC. We picked our division winners. I don't remember if we did that for the NFC last week. I feel like
we kind of did as
actually.
we went through it. Actually,
did we do it? Okay.
We did, but I didn't pay attention to it as I didn't the week before because I'm like, well, we're gonna do this in 2 weeks, and all my picks will be changed because I'll have forgotten these. So,
well, these ones are on paper.
These ones are on paper,
typed in,
which is good because
record them on the podcast. They are being locked in.
I remember saying things that I'm like, this might be surprising, but I'm picking them to win this division. I could not remember who those people were, so they're probably not listed here. They're not official. So
you saved yourself. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll start in the AFC because we recapped them first 2 weeks ago, anyways. AFC North, we both picked the Bengals. I mean, that's not super surprising. Yeah, I mean, any comment on that? I mean, I think it's pretty obvious. I will say the AFC North does have 3 very competitive teams, and even the Steelers, if Pickett takes a big step up, in my opinion.
Yeah. Hold on, I'm making some like changes here at the end, which need to not happen.
It's on paper now. He's got to change it. No. Yeah. I just think the Bengals are they've won the division the last couple seasons. They're the best team all around. I do like the Ravens and Browns. We'll get to that later. And the Steelers could be very good, but I just think the Bengals are just too talented.
With everything that's gone on with the Ravens. Contract situations, J.K. Dobbins being injured. There's just so many things we talked about during the AFC preview with the Ravens that I just can't pick them to win the division. Now, they are really good. They had a really good record last year, and I don't see that record going away or being bad this season, but I can't pick them to win it when the Bengals can win 9 straight games and take the division.
Yeah, agreed. AFC South, I think this one's a little easier. We both picked the Jaguars. I think there's no way in hell the Texans or Colts are possibly going to win that division. And the Titans, maybe, but
the only team in that division with any chance of anything we wrote down on paper is the Titans, with a far outside shot of making that last wild card spot. I don't see them winning the division though.
No, I think the Jaguars honestly are gonna break out and win. They could win like 11 games this year. Like they're gonna go nuts. Yeah. AFC East, we actually do have differences here. I went with the Bills. Probably the obvious choice. But I'll tell you, you went with the Dolphins.
I did.
My only concern there was Tua's health. If Tua stays healthy, absolutely could see them upsetting the Bills for the division. But I picked the Bills because I'm just a little wary about Tua being able to stay healthy.
Well, I'm wary of the Bills being good for an entire season, which doesn't happen all the time. So they either do really good at the beginning of the season and really bad at the end, or really bad at the beginning and really good at the end. So I see both sides here. Tua could be injured this season, and the Bills could be bad and good within the same season. And you're still tossing the coin in the air to see which one's winning the division. So I think it's going to be the Dolphins. I just think the Bills just constantly find ways to shoot themselves in the foot. And I think they're actually going to do it in season instead of the playoffs this time.
Yeah, could happen. They've won the division the last 3 years. It's definitely not the Patriots or Jets, in my opinion. The Dolphins are definitely going to make it close.
Yep.
Especially if Tua does stay healthy, yeah, absolutely can see that upsetting it. AFC West, we both picked the Chiefs. Again, it's the obvious choice. The AFC West does have a lot of good teams in it, especially if the Broncos bounce back. But the Chiefs they're the Super Bowl champs. They're the Chiefs. I can't pick against them.
I can't pick any team in there besides maybe the Chargers.
They were the only other team I would have picked.
Sean Payton, good coach on the Saints. Broncos, bad team with Nathaniel Hackett, still bad. Unless Russell Wilson can be old Russell Wilson. But here's the thing. Russell Wilson wasn't old Russell Wilson on the Seahawks. So to me, there's nothing to indicate that he'll be the old Russell Wilson on the Broncos. I feel like he was deteriorating and going downhill as far as MVP caliber Super Bowl type quarterback for like 2 or 3 years on the Seahawks. It really did not surprise me that much last year that he was not doing well on the Broncos because he saw it in Seattle. Now, how fast he deteriorated from how he was in Seattle to what he was last year, that was the surprise. But I don't believe in the Broncos.
Yeah, you have to see it first. Like, I mean, there's the possibility that Sean Payton turns him around, but even then, they still have the Chiefs, they still have the Chargers, the Raiders. It'll remain to be seen how Jimmy G fits in there, but yeah, I the Chiefs, the Chargers are the only other team I think could possibly win this division, but it's the Chiefs, it's Mahomes, just continually does it. Andy Reid. As far as wild card teams, I mentioned the Ravens and Browns in the AFC North. I really like the AFC North. So I went with the Ravens and Browns as two of my wild card teams, and the Chargers as my last wild card team. I didn't put the Dolphins on there. That one was very tough. I went with the Browns instead, just because, again, I love the Browns players. If Deshaun Watson finally there for a full season. And again, with Tua's health. But that one's tough. The last team between the Browns and the Dolphins it's very, very tough. But I just erred on the side of Tua staying healthy.
Well, I picked the Dolphins, so I automatically put the Bills in there after that. Ravens as well, since I took the Bengals. And then my surprise team is the Jets. I don't have the Chargers in. I have the Jets. I don't have the Browns in because I have the Dolphins. So,
right.
My surprise team there is really the Jets. Well, Jets and Dolphins are the difference for me between yours. So.
Yeah, those are the two different teams between playoff teams, and obviously the one division winner.
That also gives us 3 AFC East teams in the playoffs.
And I went with 3 AFC North teams. Yeah, so. All right, so now to the NFC. NFC North. I do remember mentioning this last week because we had the discussion about you didn't want to pick them. I went with the Lions. I do think they win that division pretty easily, actually. And you chose the Vikings, which I understand not wanting to pick your team. Believe me.
Yes, I picked the Vikings.
Yeah. I completely
They're the only like complete team still left without questions currently in that division. No, sorry, they're not. The Lions are too, but I'm other than the Lions, the Vikings. So that's what I picked.
Yeah, no, I think the Vikings. I do have them as a playoff team. Spoiler alert. I think the Lions are the better team in that division, but
so do I.
I respect.
But I'm not picking them.
I get it. Believe me. Knock on some wood somewhere. NFC South, we both went with the Saints. This one really, I kind of thought about the Bucks because I do like Baker Mayfield, but Derek Carr is just him on the Saints is a good fit. The Saints are the more talented team all around.
I think Maurice was talking about this last week in chat, but this might be the division where you get a team with a losing record as the winner. So
yes, an 8-9 team wins the division.
It's a crapshoot, but of the crapshoot, I feel like the Saints have the best core of a team.
Agreed.
So
yeah, absolutely. NFC East, you went with the Eagles. I
did.
Picked the Cowboys, and this is why. Because the NFC East hasn't had a repeat champion in 20 some odd years, I just didn't want to pick the Eagles. So I went with the Cowboys. Either one, the Eagles should win it, but it's so weird to not have the same team win the division in back-to-back years in like 2 decades. So I figured I would just go with the side of history on that one and pick a different team than the Eagles. So I went with the Cowboys.
Gotcha. Well, I went the Eagles just because I feel like they're the best team in the division. So
yeah, they are. In my world, the Cowboys are 12-5, and the Eagles are 12-5, but the Cowboys win based off head-to-head matchups or something like that. Like I don't know. It's a fluke stats for a team not to win that division in back-to-back years for that long. So I just
Yeah.
I'm just betting on it continuing.
I understand for sure.
NFC West, we both picked the 49ers. I don't think that's not a question. They're the best team in that division.
Yep. But I did pick a different team from that division for the wild card.
You know what's funny? I was on the fence between the Seahawks and Giants. You went with the Seahawks as one of your wild card teams. I went with the Giants. Either one. I swear, I probably had Seahawks at one point and then switched to Giants.
Yeah.
But I went with the Eagles because I had the Cowboys win. You went with the Cowboys because you had the Eagles win. So we both have those two teams in. I went with the Vikings because I had the Lions win. You went with the Lions because you had the Vikings win. So, I mean, we have 6 of the same teams from the NFC making the playoffs. And then the one difference, the Seahawks versus the Giants.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see how that goes.
I feel like the NFC is a little easier to choose because it's so much more top-heavy than the AFC. Like, the AFC has a bunch of teams. You know, they've got the Chiefs and the Bills and Bengals, but they've got a bunch of teams that can move up and down each year, where the NFC just seems like it's like, no, these are the obviously good teams, and then it's, all right, who else is going to limp into the playoffs?
Yeah, exactly. We just exchanged the Packers for the Lions this time.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the only difference between the teams we chose and the teams that made the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
Well, no, because I think the Bucs won the South, but whatever. All right, well, there you go. That's our.
That is it.
That is it. Next week. So next week, are we going to do just who we think is going to win the Super Bowl, or do you want to do like what we think the playoff matches are going to be like, and all of that, minute detail, or do you want to just go with Super Bowl pick?
Let's go based off this. We'll seed the teams and then pick how the playoff goes for each of us.
I like it.
How about that?
Full breakdown of how we expect the playoffs to play out. I like it.
Yeah. That'll be fun.
And then we'll save our Super Bowl winner for the 2 weeks from now, which will be I believe the last podcast before the season starts.
Yep. Exactly.
Awesome.
Sweet. All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening. This has been episode 5. We appreciate you as always for checking everything out. I hope you enjoy week 2 of the preseason. Like us, read the box scores, watch the highlights. Don't take too much out of it. Even though we try to, it's still the preseason. So
exactly.
Few weeks left until the season. We're almost there. But until then, thank you everybody for listening. And we will be back with you next Wednesday, 7 p.m. here on youtube.com/@Coffin Corner. So until then, thanks for listening.
And where else can they find us? I mean, TikTok and
you can find us on Twitter at Coffin Corners. You can find
X.
Sorry, you can find us on X at Coffin Corners. You can find us on TikTok at Coffin Corner Podcast. And those are the 3 main places you will find us. These are YouTube, Twitter, and TikTok. So until next week, we appreciate you all. Thanks for listening, and we will be back for episode 6. Richie, last words.
Bye, everyone.
Later, everybody.